My name's Sherry Wentworth, and in this presentation we'll look at the third of the ideas about the palm, the neurovascular structures. Neuro obviously meaning nerves, vascular, vessels. So let's start with the nerves. You've already met these nerves because they are three of the terminal branches of the brachial plexus. So we have the radial nerve, the median nerve and the ulnar nerve. Now, as a first question to post on the forums, what I want you to think about is the origin of these nerves and their origin in the plexus. So think of the idea of divisions within the plexus. Can you think about that, revise those ideas and post them on the forums? So let's have a look at the nerves as they occur in the hand. To do that, we need to consider them as they pass into the hand. So starting with the median nerve, we have a diagram at the wrist showing that the median nerve passes deep to the flexor retinaculum and therefore travels in the carpal tunnel. As it goes into the hand, it has a major branch that will curve back over the flexor retinaculum to supply the thenar muscles. This is called the recurrent branch. It will also supply two other muscles in the hand, the lateral two lumbricals, and will also have sensory branches. So you can see the pattern here, where we have the median nerve passing under the flexor retinaculum, the recurrent branch curving back over the retinaculum, and then the sensory branches going out to the digits. Looking at these sensory branches, and you can see I've coloured them red on this picture, you can see that they supply 3.5 digits. So we have the area coloured in here that you can see the median nerve supplies on the palm, so most of the palm. If you go to the dorsal surface, the medial nerve will also supply the first web space and the nail beds of those digits. So median does a lot of the sensory innervation of the palm of the hand and some of the dorsal surface. The ulnar nerve, we're picking up the rest. So let's look at the ulnar nerve. We're looking at the idea of it running superficial to the flexor retinaculum. So median deep, ulnar superficial. As it passes into the hand, it will supply the hypothenar muscles. So the median supplies the thenar, the ulnar the hypothenar. The median will also have a deep branch that will supply the other deep muscles. So we're looking at the interossei, adductor pollicis and the other two medial lumbricals. We also have 1.5 digits that need supplying, so it will have sensory branches to supply those. And you can see that on this illustration. The ulnar nerve coming in, its deep branch curving back towards the thumb, and the sensory branches coming off. In this illustration we've coloured the sensory branches of the ulnar nerve in green, and you can see them supplying the medial 1.5 digits. Unlike the median nerve, however, it supplies both surfaces of those digits, so the anterior and the posterior surfaces. That leaves the radial nerve, and in the hand the radial nerve is only sensory. So here you can see the branches, as it's already branched out, to supply the skin of the dorsal surface of the hand. And coloured in blue is the areas it's supplying. So on the dorsum it's supplying the areas that are not supplied by the median or the ulnar. So most of the dorsal surface. That's now dealt with the nerves. Let's consider the idea of the vessels. Now if you take a look at this picture, you can see that there are a lot of vessels in the hand. As you may well realise, if you've ever cut your hand, it bleeds. It bleeds because it's supplied by two major vessels, the radial and the ulnar. These branch in the hand and anastomose, so we have a lot of blood coming into the hand. If you look at the way it's formed, we have the ulnar coming into the hand and sending a branch up to the 5th digit, but also curving around. So here's the ulnar artery and the radial artery. As you can see, the ulnar will curve around, forming the superficial palmar arch. It will anastomose with the superficial branch of the radial. So we have one anastomosis already, the superficial palmar arch. The radial artery will continue posteriorly through the anatomical snuff box. It will then run back onto the palm between the first dorsal interosseous and adductor pollicis, and it will form the deep palmar arch. So two major anastomoses between the ulnar and the radial arteries. From each of these arches we will have branches to supply the digits. So we'll have an artery running between the metacarpals and then dividing in the web spaces to form the digital arteries. Again, a very good blood supply to the digits. The deep palmar arch will also send branches to supply the digits. So again, excellent blood supply. If we look at the radial artery as it's travelling posteriorly, you can see it running through the anatomical snuff box on this dorsal view. It will then pass back onto the palm through the first dorsal interosseous. Now, as it travels in the snuff box, you can actually find a pulse point for the artery there. Once it comes back anteriorly, it forms the deep palmar arch. So the radial artery. As you can see on these views, we have the view of the hand showing the snuff box and then the view below it showing the artery travelling through the snuff box. Now, I commented about finding a pulse in the snuff box. I have a principle that relates to pulses, and I want you to think about this for pulse points in the hand. So have a think about the idea that we can find a pulse, an arterial pulse, can be palpated most easily when it's superficial, so where an artery can be compressed through a thin layer of overlying tissue, for example skin and fascia, and that we can compress it against an underlying bone so that we can get the pulse. So have a think and maybe a bit of research in your books as to where you would find pulse points in the hand. So I want you to post your answers on the forum for that as well. Okay, arteries, obviously we have veins. The venous pattern in the hand is the same as the arterial, so I'm not going to go over that, but what I do want to look at is the superficial pattern. So the dorsal venous arch. Same idea as you found in the foot. We have a dorsal venous arch that will drain the posterior surface of the hand and that will be supplied and fed into by the anterior surface of the hand. So as you grasp something, you're not compressing all the veins, the blood will be flowing back onto the posterior surface. Now, these will be collected by the cephalic and the basilic veins. So basically that is the idea of neurovascular structures. I've asked a few questions, so I want you to post your answers to those questions on the forum, and obviously any other questions you have about this topic. Thank you.